Hello! In this video I am going to show you how to replace your old room thermostat with a new digital Honeywell DT4. After I finish the installation, I'll show you how to operate it. So how to change the temperature and how to use the 3 settings. So you have the off setting, the eco setting, and of course the on setting. At the end of the video, I'll give you a brief summing up of what I think about this thermostat, so do stick around to the end of the video. Now this is the hardwired version of this thermostat, so you can also get a wireless version. That is the DT4R. Now the installation of the wireless thermostat is completely different to the installation of the hardwired thermostat. So if you want to know how to go about installing the wireless version, then check out my other video, and you'll find that linked in the cards below. Now, whilst I mentioned the description and the links down below, I have a whole library of videos to help you with your gas boilers and your central heating, from general use to making them more efficient. So do check those out in the description below. Right, now let's get on with this thermostat. So here's the Honeywell Home DT4 Room Thermostat, and I'm going to be installing it onto this boiler over here, which is an ideal combination boiler. Now they already have a room thermostat, but they just want to replace it for this digital one. And I'm going to talk you through how we go about doing that. So here's what we got in the box. We got the thermostat, we've got the wiring backplate, we've got a couple of books of instructions, and we got some wall plugs and a couple of screws. Now to wire this in on the back plates, we got this little door here where we undo the screw and we just open up the connections just underneath here. We have an A, B and a C connection, but we're only going to be using A and B. And in the instructions here, you can see how you would wire it into a zone valve, as you can see there, using connections A and B. And then also we've got the connections onto a heat pump, which would be exactly the same for a combination boiler. Now, if we take a look at the thermostat itself, you can see it's got this white front to it. Now, if we turn it over, we can see that there are 2 AA batteries, and you've got this little piece of paper here which we need to remove to get the room thermostat working. And there we go, that's the thermostat now on, and we can adjust the temperature by using the plus and minus buttons. And there are a couple of different menus which we can scroll through, but I'll talk about those after I finish installing it. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is to make sure that my boiler is powered off, so there is no power on the boiler and no power going to the original thermostat. Now there's a switch down here which I've just switched off, and you can see that the boiler is now turned off. Now ideally you want to remove the fuse if you've got a switch fuse spur, or unplug the boiler if it's just plugged in. And that would be exactly the same for any other system that you may have. Make sure that the power is turned off before you go working on the room thermostat. Now this is the old Drayton thermostat, which the homeowner wants removed and replaced with the new digital one. Now on the bottom of this thermostat there are 2 screws which I need to loosen off so I can remove the thermostat. Now every thermostat has different ways that they come apart, so it's just a case of figuring out how yours comes apart. It doesn't really matter if you break the old thermostat getting it off, because obviously we're not going to use it again. But what's really important is that you don't damage the wires and you know exactly which terminals the wires are connected to, because that is important when we come to refit the new thermostat. So now I've loosened those 2 screws. Now all I've got to do is to hinge it forwards and lift it off the back plate. And there we go, now we can see the wiring for the original room thermostat. So this thermostat has been supplied with a 3-core and earth cable. Now the Drayton thermostats need 3 wires to be connected to make the thermostat work. So we've got a switch live coming in on the brown wire, black is on a neutral connection, and grey is our switch live out. And then we have an earth cable terminated down here. This old Drayton thermostat is one of the few thermostats which actually need to run on 230 volts and need to have that neutral wire connected. But most thermostats are what we call volt free, which means they can work on any voltage. and only need 2 wires to operate like this new thermostat. Now when you're looking at your old thermostat wiring, you can't take it that the colours of the wires are correct. So blue may not be neutral, it might be switch live. And a yellow and green wire may not be earth, it also may be switch live. So you must work these wires out, otherwise something might go bang. But if you've only got 2 wires connected and are earth, then you've got nothing to worry about. If you need to know more about thermostat wiring, then check out my other video, Thermostat Wiring. Now, it's a really good idea to get your phone and take a photo of the wire connections, just so you remember exactly where each of them are connected, because now we need to disconnect them all. And there we go, that's now all 3 wires loosened off. I can now remove the 2 screws which are holding the backplate to the wall. So there we go, that's the old backplate now removed. Now I've got to fit this new backplate in the same position. Now unfortunately this turned out not to be quite as easy as I was hoping. Now the original screws which I tried using, they stand proud of the hole holding the backplate on, but there's no room for them on the back of the thermostat. So I've got to replace the screws with some countersunk screws which will fit down inside the hole recess. So here's the countersunk screw, and you can see how this screw goes down inside the recess of the screw hole on the back plate. And there we go, that's 1 screw replaced. Now I can replace the second one. So there we go, now I've got the back plate screwed to the wall. Now I've got my 4 wires which I need to connect onto the thermostat or isolate safely. Now brown is our switch live coming in, and that's going to go onto the A connection. But I can see when I poke it into the hole where it goes, there's a little bit of cable I can see sticking out. So I'm just going to trim the cable back a bit with a pair of side cutters. So I'm going to trim this brown wire back like that. And I'm also going to trim back the grey wire just there and just trim that one back also. And there we go. That's those now both trimmed back. I can now take my switch live in wire and put it into terminal A and do up the screw. Then just give it a little tug to make sure that it is nice and secure. Now I can take the switch live out wire, which is the grey one, and pop that into terminal B and then do up the screw, and once again just make sure that it is nice and secure. Now I need to try and fold these 2 wires back into this little enclosure here and then terminate the earth wire and the neutral wire. Now both these wires must be terminated properly, because at the other end of the wire they will still be connected to the system. So I've now put some earth sleeving on the earth wire, and I've just terminated it with an electrical connection, and I've just terminated the neutral connection. Now I've got to try and fold these wires back inside this little enclosure here, and that proved to be pretty much impossible. But luckily this thermostat is attached onto a plasterboard wall, and I was able just to nibble away a bit more of the plasterboard to give me a bit more space behind there, so I could just tuck those 2 little terminal blocks in like that. So now those are both tucked in there and out the way. I can now close up the little cover here and do up the screw. So there we go, that's the installation of the back plate done. And if I wanted to, I could turn the power back on now. Now it's just a case of pushing the room thermostat onto the back plate. Just put it on there square and push it back. And obviously make sure that that paper tag has been removed. And there we go, that's the installation complete. Press the button now, and there we go. It says it is 19 degrees in here. So now back to the boiler and turn on the power. And there we go. That's the power back on, and now the boiler has come back to life. Now I've turned on the heating, which is on the time clock, which is underneath the cover on the boiler. So now I can go and test that the thermostat is working okay. Now just before I show you how to operate your thermostat, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Ballard, and I've been a gas engineer for 30 years. The aim of my channel is to help you with your gas boilers and your central heating. If you find this video at all useful, then please give me a little bit of feedback by clicking on that thumbs up or the subscribe, and that will help others to find the video. And of course, you can share the video with your friends. If you visit my website, I've categorized all my videos on products and parts that I recommend so you can easily find what you're looking for. And I'd like to say a really big thank you to everybody who's bought me a cup of coffee and left me a donation in my Toolbox fund. It's really appreciated and it does really help me to make more videos which will hopefully help you. So here's our thermostat. There's nothing to touch around the outside. It's just a case of touching the middle button and then the plus and minus on each side. Now, one thing I would say is I wish that the display stayed lit for just a little bit longer. I know it's all about saving energy, but I feel an extra second would have been helpful. Now, I've just turned my light off so that we can see the thermostat a bit more clearly. So if I push the button to light up the display, we can now see that it says 19.5 degrees C, and then we can see in the top left hand corner there's a picture of a flame telling us that heating on is selected. If I then press the plus or the minus button, it will then tell me what temperature I have the thermostat set to. You can see that I have the thermostat set at 21 degrees. If I then keep pressing the minus button, I can turn the set temperature down. So you can see I'm turning it down to 15, 14, 13.5, down to 11.5 degrees. When I take my hand away, the display will flash a couple of times and then it'll go back to the room temperature before the screen goes out. Now, if I want to turn the temperature up, all I gotta do is press the middle button and then press the plus button and I can turn the temperature all the way up. Now, I could just keep my finger on the button and that would also turn the temperature up. Now I've set it to 25 degrees. And then it's going to show me the room temperature again, which is 21 degrees. So now my heating is definitely on. And it's going to try heating the house up to 25 degrees. Now this thermostat does have a couple of other functions which it can do. It can be a little confusing, but it is pretty straightforward. If we press the middle button and then we press it again, we can then scroll through 3 different icons. There's the off icon. And then it also says off in the display. If I press the minus button again, it changes to a leaf and it says eco in the display. And I press the minus button again and it changes to on. So the thermostat has 3 settings. We have off, we have eco, and we have on. Now hopefully off is pretty straightforward. If the on-off icon is in the display, then your heating is turned off. And the room thermostat would have automatically set itself to frost protection, which is 5 degrees. And you will not be able to adjust this temperature. So to come out of the off setting, you need to press the button in the middle, press it again, and press either plus or minus to move up and down the menu. Now, if you select the eco setting, that's like a timer with a set temperature. So we select eco and then select it again, and then we can select a number of hours which we want our heating to be on for. So by pressing the plus button, I can change that to 2 hours. Then I'll press the middle button again. I can then change the temperature that I want my heating to be running at for those number of hours. Now I selected 21 degrees and the room temperature at the moment is 21.5 degrees. And now there are 2 icons in the display. There's the heating on and the little leaf eco icon, telling me that I've got eco selected and I have a timer running. Now you could also use this function kind of the other way around, as in if you were going out, you could set the temperature down low for a number of hours and then your heating would stay off for the number of hours you set it to, and then it'll count down and revert back to the temperature that you've got the thermostat set to. So you can come home to a nice warm house. Now, if I want to turn that eco setting off, all I've got to do is just touch that middle button, touch it again, and then just scroll up and down, pressing the plus or minus buttons. And then press the middle button again to select on or maybe select off. Now, hopefully that's not too complicated and you understand how to adjust your thermostat and, of course, install it if you want to replace an old room thermostat. Now, just to sum up a little bit on this thermostat, I think it's a nice thermostat. But personally, I'd like to see the temperature of the room displayed all the time. And like I said earlier, when adjusting the settings, I'd like to see the display stay on for just a little bit longer. Now regarding the installation, the plate is a pretty standard size, but I would like to see that electrical connection box maybe just a bit bigger, because it is quite often the case that there are a couple of wires that need to be terminated. They could just add a couple of terminals and that would make life so much easier. Now it's fairly easy to use, but I think at some point someone will be pushing that middle button by accident, selecting one of the other functions without realizing it, and then struggling to get their heating to come on as they try and work out what's gone wrong with their heating. And trust me, I see this type of thing happening all the time, especially with the older generation. Now this thermostat replaces the old Honeywell DT4. Personally, I prefer the older thermostat because you can see the temperature of the room all the time. But Honeywell has discontinued this thermostat. Right, that's about it then. So I do hope this video has helped you out if you're looking to install or are installing the Honeywell DT4. As usual, a bit of feedback is really appreciated, so if you click on the thumbs up or the subscribe, that'll be really useful. And of course, if you want to check out either of my other videos, linked just here, and of course, a cup of coffee in my toolbox fund is always really appreciated. Bye for now, and I'll see you in the next video.